Wan is a completely bitchless man who has never felt the touch of a woman in his entire life. The only people he had were his parents, but they tragically died in a car accident on Christmas Eve. Since then, every Christmas has been the same. He wanders around aimlessly while everyone else spends time with their wives and kids. That only makes Wan feel even lonelier. All he can do is watch people from a distance while they avoid him because of his intimidating height. As he's roaming the streets, he notices an old man dressed as Santa begging for money. Feeling bad for the guy, he decides to spare him some cash instead of wasting it on beer and junk food. The old man gratefully thanks Wan and asks if there's anything he wishes for in life. The question instantly creeps him out, so he tries to walk away, but the old man keeps pressing him. Eventually, Wan gives up and jokingly says he wants to win the lottery. The old man immediately calls out his BS and tells him to stop lying and reveal the wish hidden deep inside his heart. That hits Wan harder than expected. He realizes the only thing he truly wants is a happy family, a beautiful wife, and a cute daughter. The old man promises that wish will come true, and if it doesn't, he'll stop being Santa forever. Thinking the guy is just some Santa-obsessed weirdo, Wan leaves and heads back to his tiny rundown apartment. Later that night, he boards a train packed with couples. Sick of looking at them, he closes his eyes and falls asleep. It's the last time he ever sleeps on Earth. The moment he opens his eyes again, he's inside a cage on a moving carriage alongside several other people. Everyone looks terrible, like they haven't eaten in days. Wan seems slightly better off, but there's one huge problem. He's completely naked. As he looks around, he hears the soldiers escorting the carriage speaking a language he can't understand. He also notices that everyone inside the cage is chained with heavy shackles. That's when it clicks. This is a slave caravan. Wan finally realizes that creepy Santa straight up ice-kai'd him into another world and somehow stole Truck Kun's job. Before he can fully process it, the freezing cold starts making him shiver. Lost and confused, his eyes land on a dead slave whose clothes are still intact. Even though he feels guilty about robbing a corpse, he doesn't have much choice unless he wants to freeze to death. After putting the clothes on, he sits down and thinks about that weird Santa. Was becoming a slave really supposed to lead him to the loving family he always wanted? Or was Santa just trolling him? Either way, he desperately hopes this is all a dream and that he'll wake up in his warm apartment. Days pass, Wan slowly adapts to life among the slaves. His cheeks become hollow, his appearance grows rougher, and the constant hunger starts breaking him down. Eventually, the carriage stops at a village where the soldiers line up the slaves to be auctioned. For the first time, Wan sees a tiny bit of hope. Sure, being sold as a slave sucks, but at least he'd get fed regularly. Plus, he's confident that with his height and decent looks, some rich guy will definitely buy him. Reality hits him like a truck. Nobody even glances in his direction. Village after village, every other slave gets sold while Wan remains behind. Eventually, he loses all hope. He curses that creepy Santa for lying to him about happiness and dumping him into this hellhole. Unable to endure the suffering any longer, Wan decides to end it all by driving a nearby fork into his neck. But right before he can do it, an angel appears before him and reaches out a helping hand. Wan freezes. The woman standing before him is unbelievably beautiful. In her hand is a piece of bread that somehow looks better than anything he's ever seen, even at a 3-Michelin-star restaurant. The woman tries speaking to him, but Wan can't understand a single word. Not because of the language, but because he's completely distracted by her beauty and the adorable little daughter standing beside her. Previously, inside a shabby little hut, the beautiful Liz and her daughter are sharing a small dinner together. The portions are tiny, and worried that her daughter might still be hungry, Liz gives her own share to the girl. The little girl is happy, but she doesn't want her mother going hungry either. So she splits the food in half, keeping one part for herself and giving the rest back to Liz. Liz is about to thank her when loud banging suddenly erupts from the front door. Opening it, she finds the village chief outside. He tells her not to open the door fully and to simply listen. The chief explains that soldiers have arrived with several slaves and that the village will be purchasing one of them to become her husband. He urges Liz to prepare herself because she'll be moving back to the mountain. Before leaving, he also reminds her to prepare food for the soldiers since they'll arrive by daybreak. The news hits Liz like a punch to the gut. Her previous marriage had been a complete nightmare. She was beaten almost every day and forced to endure endless suffering. The thought of going through that again terrifies her, and for a moment she considers running away. But then she looks at the young girl. The child was left behind by her former husband from a previous marriage. They haven't known each other for very long, yet Liz can't bring herself to abandon her. Sensing her mother's distress, the little girl wraps her tiny arms around Liz and tries comforting her. Liz eventually stops crying and puts the girl to bed. The child doesn't even have a name yet, which makes Liz even more afraid that another marriage could drag them both into a new nightmare. That nightmare began years ago when her own father sold her for nothing more than a rabbit's skin. A man living on the mountain bought her, and before she could even unpack her belongings, he showed up and beat her for being too slow. Things never improved. The abuse and torture continued day after day. Her spirit would have completely broken if not for the little girl who appeared like an angel in the middle of her personal hell. One day, after beating Liz once again, the man left for the forest to hunt and never returned. Later, the village chief informed her that he had been killed by a wild animal and that his body was never recovered. At first, Liz was overjoyed, then reality kicked in. In these backward times, a woman without a husband was practically helpless and couldn't survive alone. That's why Liz decides to face her fears instead of running away. After all, she can't abandon her daughter. The following morning, Liz prepares herself and bakes a few pieces of bread. Carrying the food outside, she heads toward the parked carriages. That's when she notices a man trying to unalive himself by pressing a fork against his neck. The sight instantly reminds her of her own darkest moments and how she once considered ending her life the exact same way, but she couldn't do it. So without hesitation, Liz rushes over and stops the man before he can hurt himself. Looking at his sunken cheeks and messy appearance, she offers him a piece of bread. Before she can say anything else, the village chief arrives and tells her to return to her hut while he handles the slave purchase. Liz and the little girl take one final look at the man before leaving. That man is Ju-won. He can barely process what just happened. Someone had offered him food right when he was about to give up on life. Everything else disappears from his mind as he focuses entirely on the bread in his hands. Unfortunately, before he can take a single bite, the soldiers drag him out of the cage and present him before the village chief. Ju-won and two other slaves kneel on the ground while soldiers surround them. Then one of the soldiers pulls out a knife and slices their arms. Blood drips onto two sheets of paper, causing them to glow with a faint blue light. Ju-won is completely stunned. Is this magic? The realization only makes him more curious about this strange world where slavery still exists and magic is apparently real. Once the contracts are completed, a soldier quietly whispers something into the village chief's ear. The chief nods before approaching Ju-won to inspect him. Meanwhile, Liz and her daughter return to their hut. A village woman brings them supplies and explains that Liz's new husband doesn't understand their language, which may make communication difficult. The woman can see that Liz is still traumatized. Trying to reassure her, she mentions that although the new husband appears to be a commoner, his hands are as soft as a noble's. She also reminds Liz that nobody liked her previous husband and only tolerated him because he worked as the mountain keeper. If the new man can do the same job well, they may finally be able to live comfortably. But Liz doesn't care about any of that. She simply hopes he isn't violent. Just then, the village chief opens the door and brings her new husband inside. Liz is shocked. It's the exact same man she saw trying to unalive himself earlier. Seeing him up close makes her realize just how huge he actually is, which immediately makes her nervous. Ju-won also recognizes her as the woman who gave him bread, though he has no idea why she's trembling so much. Before he can figure anything out, the village chief grabs his arm and places him beside Liz and her daughter. Then he forcefully locks their arms together, making them look like the most awkward newlywed couple imaginable. Ju-won doesn't understand a single word being said, but judging by the atmosphere and his current situation, he quickly realizes what's happening. He's getting married. At that moment, he remembers the creepy Santa. The old man wasn't lying when he promised him a cute rabbit-like wife and an adorable mongoose daughter. For the first time in a very long while, Ju-won finally feels happy that his dream might actually be coming true. Even so, Ju-won can't help being pissed at that creepy Santa for making him go through all this trouble. He swears that if he ever runs into that old man again, he'll make him suffer even worse. Unfortunately, Ju-won's angry expression ends up terrifying Liz and the little girl, both of whom are already carrying trauma from their past experiences. Meanwhile, the village chief is pleased to see Ju-won looking full of energy. The job of a mountain keeper is no joke, and only someone strong can handle it. To make sure he's capable enough, the chief decides to test him. First, he sends a villager to challenge Ju-won to a handshake contest. Even though Ju-won doesn't understand their language, he can tell what they're trying to do, so he grips the man's hand with all his strength. The villager instantly regrets his decision. Ju-won nearly crushes his hand without even looking like he's trying. Satisfied with the result, the village chief moves on to the next test. This time, he hands Ju-won a bow and signals for him to shoot a wild rabbit. The problem is that Ju-won has never touched a bow in his life. The only archers he's ever seen were at the Olympics. Trying his best to copy their stance, he fires an arrow. The shot barely misses the rabbit. Surprisingly, the village chief still seems impressed and even claps for him. Ju-Won has absolutely no clue what's going on when Liz and the little girl suddenly approach him carrying a basket. Seeing her up close again, Ju-Won can't get over how beautiful Liz is. He still can't believe she's actually his wife now. The thought alone makes him blush. The village chief immediately realizes this guy has probably never been around women before, so he decides to leave them alone and give them time to get comfortable with each other. Now that nobody else is around, Liz becomes even more nervous. She has no idea how to deal with her new husband. Still, she knows she has responsibilities as a wife. So she spreads a cloth across the ground, takes food out of the basket, and serves a portion to Ju-Won, the little girl, and herself. The meal is painfully awkward. Ju-Won wants to break the silence, but he can't speak their language. He can't even introduce himself. That only makes him curse that creepy Santa even more for dumping him in some random fantasy world. Still, despite everything, he's grateful. Without Santa's help, he would have never gotten a family like this. Once they're done eating, the village chief returns and leads them toward their cabin on the mountain. The journey is long and steep, exhausting both Liz and the little girl, who are already malnourished. Ju-Won quickly notices their struggle. As the man of the family, he decides to help. When he approaches Liz, she immediately becomes frightened and wonders what he's about to do. Ju-Won is the kind of guy who would never touch a woman without permission. But he doesn't know the language and there isn't enough time to explain himself, so he simply picks both of them up and starts walking uphill. As he carries them, he realizes just how undernourished they are from how little they weigh. That thought only strengthens his determination. He wants to learn the language, communicate properly with them, and make sure they eat enough to grow healthy and strong. Even though Liz can't understand his thoughts, she can see the determination in his eyes. For the first time, her guard starts to lower. She even begins wiping the sweat from his face as they walk. Eventually, the three of them reach the mountaintop. Ju-Won thanks the village chief for guiding them there. After the chief leaves, Ju-Won turns toward the cabin that will now be their home. The place is in horrible condition. The sight alone makes him shiver as he realizes he might have to spend another freezing night in the cold. While silently complaining about his luck, he steps inside. That's when he finds Liz standing there with tears in her eyes. Wanting to know what happened, he starts toward her. But before he can do anything, Liz runs right past him and disappears. After running for a while, she finally stops beside a lake. There, the reason for her reaction becomes clear. Someone had broken into the cabin and stolen everything. The dishes, the table, the bow, the hammer, the knife, and even their farming hoe were all gone. With nothing left, she can't repair the damaged cabin. That means they'll be forced to spend the night in the cold without any protection from wild animals. As Liz falls deeper into despair, Ju-Won finally catches up to her. He's relieved to find her safe. Noticing that she's been crying the whole time, he quietly sits beside her and gently places a hand on her head. Even though Liz can't understand a word he's saying, she can tell he's trying to comfort her. The gesture makes her feel better, but the worries remain. She still has no idea how they're supposed to survive here. The cabin is falling apart and her new husband doesn't exactly look like someone who's done manual labor before. But fixing the cabin isn't even the biggest problem. The real issue is food. To survive, they need to hunt. And Ju-Won doesn't seem like someone who knows how to use a weapon. Yet despite all the negative thoughts filling her mind, her heart feels strangely calm. Just seeing Ju-Won beside her brings a sense of relief. For some reason, she feels certain that he'll find a way to make everything okay. The emotions become too much to handle. And before she realizes it, tears begin streaming down Liz's face once again. Ju-Won lets Liz cry everything out while he talks to her. He tells her that back in his original world, he lost his parents when he was still young. Even though life felt completely hopeless at times, he kept moving forward. And he's glad he did. Because if he hadn't, he never would have met her. That's why he wants to make sure that both she and her daughter are protected, cared for, and provided for the rest of their lives. Liz can't understand a single word he's saying, but she can feel the sincerity behind them. For the first time, she completely lowers her guard. She wraps her arms around Ju-Won and releases all the emotions she's been holding inside for years. But when the little girl sees her mother crying, she immediately assumes Ju-Won must have hurt her, just like her previous father used to do. So she rushes over and tries to pull Liz away from him. Instead, Ju-Won gently pulls her into the hug as well. He still doesn't know who the girl's real father is or why Liz offered him food when she barely had any herself. But he knows one thing for sure, they're his family now. At that moment, he promises himself that he'll become the best husband and the best father possible. He'll give them such a good life that neither of them will ever have a reason to cry again. After the family's accidental trauma bonding session comes to an end, they return to the cabin. Once inside, an awkward silence fills the room. After crying in front of each other, nobody knows how to act anymore. Eventually, Ju-won decides to break the tension by introducing himself. Since neither Liz nor the little girl understands Korean, he slowly pronounces his name so they can follow along. Fortunately, both of them are quick learners and manage to say his name correctly almost immediately. Next, he points at them, asking for their names as well. Liz goes first and introduces herself while teaching him how to pronounce it. Ju-won compliments her name before turning to the little girl. When he asks for hers, she stays silent. She was never given a name by her previous father. And after that man died, life became so chaotic that Liz never got the chance to give her one either. Ju-won can't believe someone has gone this long without a name, so he decides to give her one himself. After thinking for a moment, he chooses Dorothy, inspired by one of his favorite childhood stories, The Wizard of Oz. The little girl instantly loves the name and happily thanks Ju-won for giving her something so beautiful. Ju-won smiles. He hopes he can give her the same kind of wonderful life that Dorothy had in the story. Later that evening, Ju-won stands outside chopping logs for the fireplace. A short distance away, Liz quietly watches him while replaying everything that happened today. Under her breath, she softly repeats his name. To her, it sounds elegant and mysterious despite belonging to a language she doesn't understand. The more she thinks about it, the more curious she becomes about who Ju-won really is and where he came from. Throughout her entire life, no man has ever treated her kindly. Not her father, not her husband, no one. That's why she struggles to understand why Ju-won is so good to her. Lost in thought, she doesn't notice that Ju-won has spotted her watching. He waves toward her and calls out her name. The sound snaps her out of her gloomy thoughts. For the first time, she takes a proper look at him. She notices his dark hair and dark eyes, which remind her of a legend she recently heard. According to that story, a distant kingdom was fighting a war and summoned a hero from another world. That hero was also said to have black hair and black eyes. For a brief moment, Liz wonders if Ju-won could somehow be connected, but she quickly dismisses the idea. No legendary hero would end up in a rundown village like this, and definitely not as a slave. While she's busy wondering about his identity, Ju-won has already walked over to her. Looking at him more closely, she realizes his hair and eyes actually lean more toward brown than black. He's just a regular guy. A really tall regular guy. The realization eases her worries. At the same time, it leaves her feeling strangely embarrassed. She doesn't even understand why she was thinking about him so much in the first place. Ju-won finds her shifting emotions amusing. Without thinking much of it, he reaches over and gently pats her on the head. Liz enjoys the gesture far more than she expected. A warm feeling spreads through her chest. Seeing her relaxed expression only makes her look even cuter. And before his brain can catch up with his heart, Ju-won leans forward and lightly kisses her on the lips. Liz completely freezes. She never expected something like that. Ju-won freezes too. The moment reality hits him, he panics. Embarrassed beyond belief, he immediately turns around and runs away. As he flees, he mentally scolds himself. He can't believe he just kissed Liz when they've only known each other for a single day. While trying to figure out how he's ever going to recover from this disaster, he suddenly realizes something. He's wandered way too deep into the forest. Looking around, he starts searching for a path back to the cabin. That's when he feels a heavy presence behind him. Slowly, Ju-won turns around. Standing there is a massive wolf nearly as large as he is. And for the first time all day, Ju-won is absolutely terrified. Ju-won struggles to decide whether he should run or stay and fight the wolf. After a moment of hesitation, he grips a stick lying on the ground and mentally prepares himself for battle. The wolf is ready too. Without warning, it lunges straight at him. Armed with nothing but a stick, Ju-won quickly raises it between himself and the beast, blocking the attack at the last second. The wolf's teeth sink into the wood and get stuck. Seeing an opening, Ju-won immediately drives a powerful punch straight into the wolf's face. The hit only enrages the beast. With a vicious bite, the wolf snaps the stick clean in half. Now that its jaws are free again, its deadly fangs become a threat once more. Ju-won realizes defense is no longer an option. He decides to attack first. But the wolf reacts faster and sinks its teeth into his arm, tearing open a massive wound near his wrist. Ju-won recoils in agony. The pain feels like his entire arm has been set on fire. Then he looks down and realizes it literally has. Actual flames are erupting from his flesh. Ju-won is stunned. Is this magic? The sight instantly boosts his confidence. Even the wolf seems frightened by the mysterious flames. The beast tries to retreat, but Ju-won doesn't let it escape. He rushes forward and starts hammering it with his burning fist. Punch after punch crashes into the wolf. Its howls echo through the forest, but Ju-won shows absolutely no mercy. He keeps swinging until the beast finally goes silent. Once the fight is over, Ju-won collapses onto the ground and struggles to catch his breath. While recovering, he stares at the arm that had been engulfed in flames only moments ago. Expecting burns or injuries, he carefully checks it. There's nothing, not a single mark. This makes him wonder if he somehow managed to use magic without any training or guidance. The thought reminds him of all the fantasy novels he used to read. Excited, he immediately starts experimenting. Fireball, nothing happens. Firestorm, still nothing. Firewall, no luck. He even tries dramatic incantations straight out of novels, but absolutely nothing works. Eventually, Ju-Won gives up. There has to be some trick behind using magic properly. Still, he's completely certain he possesses magical abilities. After all, the arm that should have had a huge bite wound is now perfectly healed. Ju-Won becomes determined to master this power as quickly as possible. Not only would it make him a better hunter, but it could also allow him to heal his family. And on this mountain, there isn't even a doctor around. Clenching his fists, Ju-Won swears to become stronger as fast as possible. He wants to protect his family. He wants to provide them with a better life. Most importantly, he never wants to be called a curse again. The label still haunts him. After his parents died, his grandfather took him in because none of his other relatives wanted him. But shortly afterward, his grandfather passed away too. His cousins blamed him for it. They beat him and called him a cursed child, claiming everyone who cared for him eventually died. Ju-Won forcefully shoves those painful memories aside. Right now, he has more important things to do. The wolf's blood could attract other predators, so he hoists the massive carcass onto his shoulders and carries it back to the mountain cabin. His plan is simple: turn it into food for his family. Back at home, Liz and Dorothy are preparing dinner when they suddenly spot a wolf's head staring through the window. Dorothy immediately bursts into tears. The sight is way too terrifying for her. Hearing her cries, Liz grabs a knife and rushes over to protect her. Nervously peeking outside, she quickly realizes it's just Ju-Won carrying a dead wolf over his shoulder. Relief washes over her, but then she notices the injuries covering his face. Without hesitation, she rushes outside to check on him. It doesn't take long for her to realize he must have faced something extremely dangerous. Otherwise, he wouldn't look this battered. Ju-Won tries to reassure her, explaining that there are only a few scratches and that he's perfectly fine. Liz can't understand his words, but she understands his intentions. She immediately throws her arms around him. The sudden hug catches Ju-Won completely off guard. He never expected Liz to take the initiative like that. Dorothy joins in as well, wrapping her arms around his knees. Even though they can't communicate properly, Ju-Won can tell exactly what they're trying to say. They were worried about him. Very worried. That realization makes him feel guilty. He promised himself he would never make them cry, yet not even a full day has passed and he's already broken that promise. The following morning, after everyone has calmed down, Ju-Won starts processing the wolf. He skins the hide and separates the meat from the bones. Back in his old world, he used to watch his grandfather, who enjoyed raising animals and occasionally butchered them for special occasions. Because of that, Ju-Won knows the basics, but actually doing it himself is far harder than his grandfather ever made it look. Still, he has no choice. His family needs food. Just as he's about to continue working, Liz enters the barn carrying a basket and offers it to him so he can store the meat inside. Ju-Won is genuinely happy to receive her help. Wanting to thank her, he tries speaking her language. Unfortunately, his pronunciation is absolutely terrible. Liz can't help smiling and gently corrects him. For some reason, being thanked makes her incredibly happy. After all, nobody has ever really thanked her before. And it also makes Liz realize just how many new experiences she's already shared with Ju-Won. This also makes Liz realize that she has already shared so many first-time moments with Ju-Won, whether it was the first time someone thanked her or even her very first kiss. That thought makes her wonder about something else. Was she also Ju-Won's first kiss? Or had he kissed another woman before? As a woman, she can't help feeling a little jealous of whoever might have had Ju-Won's first kiss. The thought leaves a strange ache in her heart, and her mind starts wandering in directions it probably shouldn't. Still, she forces herself back to reality because there's work to do. The meat still needs to be sorted and stored, but Ju-Won won't let her handle any of the dirty work. That only confuses Liz even more. In her eyes, this is supposed to be a woman's job, yet Ju-Won does it so naturally without a single complaint. Then suddenly, Ju-Won walks over and leans closer to her face. Liz's heart immediately starts racing. She wonders if he's about to kiss her again. Without even realizing it, she closes her eyes. But instead of kissing her lips, Ju-Won simply kisses her forehead. The realization makes her feel incredibly silly for expecting something more mature. Ju-Won notices her reaction, so he leans forward again. This time, Liz stubbornly keeps her eyes open. She refuses to fall for the same trick twice. The problem is that Ju-Won wasn't trying to trick her this time. Instead, he goes straight for her lips. Liz freezes in shock. She never expected him to kiss her so suddenly. As if that wasn't embarrassing enough, her eyes immediately drift toward Dorothy. What if the girl saw everything? Unable to withstand the embarrassment, Liz bolts out of the barn like a cartoon character. Now that Liz is gone, Dorothy feels like she should help Ju-Won instead. Even though her tiny hands aren't much help, Ju-Won still thanks her for trying. That alone makes the little girl incredibly happy. Afterward, Ju-Won carries the bucket of meat back into the cabin. The inside smells terrible because of the strong scent of drying hides and meat. At first, he doesn't understand why Liz is preparing the hide inside their living space. But after watching her carefully treat the skin, he realizes just how valuable it must be. That realization makes him feel a little naive. There is still so much about this world that he doesn't understand. Many things that were completely ordinary in his previous life are considered extremely valuable here. Because of that, Ju-Won realizes he needs to change the way he thinks. Not only that, but he also needs to learn how trade, money, and business work in this world. Otherwise, he's guaranteed to get scammed sooner or later by someone smarter than him. While Liz remains busy preparing the meat and hide, Ju-Won decides to head back into the forest and get some extra work done. Liz immediately tries to stop him. She's still worried that he'll get injured again. Ju-Won reassures her the best he can. This time he's only planning to cut trees, so everything should be fine. Once inside the forest, Ju-Won finds a small tree and decides to use it for practice. Ideally, he would have preferred an oak tree since he'd heard it makes excellent firewood. Unfortunately, he has absolutely no idea how to tell different trees apart, so he focuses on the task in front of him. After marking where he wants to cut, he tightens his grip and swings the axe. The result is embarrassing. His grip is too loose and the axe flies straight out of his hands. Ju-Won quickly looks around to make sure nobody witnessed that disaster. Several hours later, he finally returns carrying a sack full of wooden logs. Even though he promised Liz he wouldn't get hurt, using an axe is harder than it looks. As a result, he ended up collecting quite a few injuries. The moment Liz sees him, she rushes over in concern and immediately begins treating his wounds. Dorothy also wants to help just like Liz. She scoops water from a nearby jar and tries sprinkling it on Ju-Won to refresh him. Unfortunately, she creates more mess than help. Even so, Ju-Won appreciates the effort and gently pats her on the head. After Liz finishes treating his wounds, the three of them gather around the dinner table. Tonight's meal is the wolf meat Ju-Won hunted the day before. The family happily enjoys eating meat again after such a long time. Dorothy enjoys it the most. She eats so much that she practically falls into a food coma. Seeing her drift off, Ju-Won carefully picks her up and carries her to bed so she can sleep comfortably without getting cold. Meanwhile, Liz heats water for Ju-Won so he can wash away all the dirt and grime covering his body. In this medieval world, it is considered a wife's duty to personally help her husband clean himself using a washcloth. Liz begins helping Ju-Won clean up and he seems to be genuinely enjoying the feeling of being cared for. But for Liz, it's not so easy. Every time she looks at him, she finds herself getting flustered, and it's becoming harder and harder to stay focused. Ju-Won notices her reaction and can't help feeling a little playful. He gently takes her hand and leans closer. What starts as a simple kiss soon turns into a heartfelt moment between the newly married couple, and before long, they grow even closer. That night becomes one neither of them will ever forget. For Liz, it is the first time in her life that she sleeps peacefully. Before meeting Ju-Won, even her childhood nights were filled with painful memories. Her family had been extremely poor, forcing everyone to share a single room. The cramped conditions often led to arguments between her parents, and her father would frequently take out his frustrations on her mother. Morning after morning, Liz would wake up to see her mother covered in bruises and quietly crying. As a child, she constantly feared that one day she would end up living the same life. Thankfully, fate had other plans. She met Ju-Won, a man who treated her like a queen and cared for her daughter like a princess. Every morning, she wakes to the sound of logs crackling in the fireplace that keeps them warm through the night. And every morning, she hopes to wake up beside the man who has brought so much kindness into her life. Liz knows life is rarely this gentle. That's why she treasures every bit of happiness Ju-Won has given her. Later that morning, while everyone else is still asleep, Liz quietly gets out of bed and starts her usual chores. Even though she doesn't want to leave Ju-Won's warm embrace, she feels obligated to do her duties. In her mind, it's the least she can do to repay him for everything he has done for her and Dorothy. But Ju-Won comes from a modern world. So instead of staying in bed, he gets up and starts helping her with the household tasks. He puts out the fire, helps tidy things up, and does whatever work he can. He's also been practicing the local language whenever possible. Every now and then, he manages to say a few simple words. One of those words is honey. Every time he says it, Liz immediately turns bright red. She's still not used to being loved and cherished like this. Of course, seeing her blush only encourages Ju-Won to tease her even more. He finds her embarrassed reactions absolutely adorable. While the couple enjoys their little moments together, Dorothy suddenly wakes up. Not because she heard them talking, but because she spent the entire night dreaming about meat. She's genuinely worried that if she sleeps too long, all the meat will somehow disappear. The moment she checks the bucket and sees it's still full, she lets out a relieved sigh. Now she's even more excited for breakfast. Watching Dorothy get so happy over something as simple as meat makes Ju-won even more determined. He wants to hunt more animals and provide even better meals for his family. He doesn't care if he runs into wolves, bears, or anything else lurking in the forest. He simply wants to make sure his family never goes hungry again. This time, he brings an axe with him. Compared to the stick he used before, it's a much better weapon. Gripping the axe tightly, Ju-won ventures deeper into the forest. As he walks, he suddenly senses a powerful presence nearby. The pressure feels even more overwhelming than the giant wolf he fought the other day. Immediately, Ju-won tightens his grip on the axe and prepares for a fight. He waits for a dangerous beast to emerge from the shadows, but instead of a monster, a hooded man steps out. Previously, the hooded man was wandering through the forest as usual when he came across a trail of blood that appeared to belong to a large animal, most likely a wolf. The discovery surprised him. He couldn't figure out who from the village would be capable of hunting something that dangerous. Curious, he decided to keep an eye on the mountain and find the culprit himself. After several days of observing, he only found one suspicious person. Ju-won, the man had a huge build and impressive muscles. At first, the hooded man assumed Ju-won was responsible for killing the wolf, but the more he watched him, the more confused he became. Ju-won couldn't even properly swing an axe. That only raised more questions. Eventually, the old man decided to confront him personally, but when he finally got a closer look at Ju-won, something immediately caught his attention. The bite mark on his forearm. The old man knew exactly how serious that wound should have been. There was no way it should have healed so quickly. In fact, an ordinary villager would have probably died from infection within a few days. Yet Ju-won stood before him without a single trace of injury. That could only mean one thing. Ju-won was a mage, and not just any mage, but a powerful one. The realization fills the old man with excitement. For years, he had nearly given up on his dream of revenge. But now that he had found someone like Ju-won, a man with incredible regeneration and magical talent, hope had finally returned. The hooded man may look old now, but his story began long ago. Back when he was young and full of ambition, he chose to become the mountain caretaker for a noble's territory. The position came with a huge opportunity. If war ever broke out, he could be recruited as a soldier. And if he earned enough merit on the battlefield, the noble might reward him with official status, allowing him to rise above the life of a commoner. That dream brought him to this mountain. At the foot of it was a peaceful village rich in resources, but there was one major problem. The villagers needed to travel deep into the forest to gather firewood, and the forest was a terrifying place. Many who entered never returned. As mountain keeper, the hooded man often had to venture into those woods himself. One day, he pushed too deep into the forest. The result was disastrous. He was severely injured and even broke one of his legs. Since a mountain keeper needed all of his limbs to work, his dream life ended that very day. While drowning in despair, he encountered something even worse: goblins. A species of monsters infamous for kidnapping human women and forcing them to bear their children. The hooded man barely escaped with his life. After that incident, his injuries forced him into retirement. He spent the rest of his years living quietly in the village. But during those 20 years, there wasn't a single day when he didn't hate the goblins. His desire for revenge never faded. That's why he constantly searched for an opportunity to strike back. Then he met Ju-won. Ju-won reignited his hope. Not only did he possess an incredibly strong body, but he also had unbelievable regeneration. On top of that, the old man was convinced that Ju-won was a magician. Because of this, he decided to dedicate the rest of his life to teaching Ju-won how to become the strongest hunter possible. Over the following days, the hooded man continued observing Ju-won. At the same time, Ju-won kept a close eye on the old man. The guy looked shady as hell, and Ju-won was convinced he might try something weird at any moment. Then one day, the old man suddenly announced that he wanted to take Ju-won as a student and teach him everything he knew. Ju-won was completely caught off guard. He had absolutely no idea what the old man was talking about. The next morning, Ju-won finishes breakfast and prepares to train. This time, however, he's not alone. The hooded man will be teaching him the skills needed to become a professional hunter. Even though Ju-won agreed to accept the training, he still doesn't trust the guy. The old man gives off the same shady vibes as his greedy manager back on Earth. Because of that, Ju-won decides to keep him far away from his family and only meet him outside. Before leaving, Liz prepares a packed lunch for him since she knows he'll be gone all day. Once everything is ready, Ju-won says goodbye to both Liz and Dorothy. They happily see him off. For most people, this would be a completely normal routine, but for Ju-won, it still feels unreal. He can't believe he's lucky enough to have such a loving family waiting for him at home. That's exactly why he needs to become stronger. He wants to protect them no matter what. The hooded man doesn't know what's motivating Ju-won so much, but he's happy to see him eager to learn. At the same time, he's keeping one important secret. He plans to hide the truth about the goblins until a contract is formed. Once that happens, Jui-won won't be able to back out even if the thought of goblins terrifies him. The hooded man then leads Jui-won deep into the forest. There, he orders him to carefully copy the way he walks. Jui-won watches closely. The old man moves in a strange and seemingly random pattern, leaving no obvious footsteps or rhythm behind. Jui-won tries his best to copy the old man's movements, wondering if this is some kind of special footwork technique like the ones he used to read about in martial arts comics. The hooded man watches with a smile as Jui-won awkwardly imitates every step, trying to recreate the strange walking pattern. After teaching Jui-won how to leave behind a confusing trail, the old man moves on to other survival skills that are essential for life in the forest. He teaches him how to tell different trees apart by their appearance and texture. He explains how to map out the forest, how to find his way back if he ever gets lost, and how to use his eyes and ears to navigate safely. The old man also teaches him how to avoid dangerous animals and other hunters. The two continue training until they eventually reach a cliff. There, the old man allows Jui-won to take a short break, catch his breath, and eat a quick snack. Jui-won is relieved. He's been looking forward to enjoying the lunch Liz packed for him that morning. Inside the lunchbox are a fried egg and several pieces of steak, the perfect meal after a tiring morning. But before he can even take a bite, the old man orders him to close the box. The scent of food could attract wild animals. Jui-won's heart instantly breaks. He really wanted to enjoy the lunch his wife made for him. Unfortunately, rules are rules. The old man quickly orders him back on his feet because they still have more ground to cover. Eventually, they arrive at their destination, a small wooden hut hidden deep within the mountains. It's the old man's home. After entering, the old man brings out a large bow and hands it to Jui-won. Jui-won has never seen a bow shaped like this before. Looking at it, he wonders how anyone could possibly pull back such a heavy string. The old man immediately proves him wrong. With ease, he draws the bow and fires an arrow. The shot slams into a nearby tree and nearly punches straight through it. Jui-won is stunned. He never expected the old man to be this strong. The hooded man then orders Jui-won to pick up the bow and repeat the shot. Unfortunately, Jui-won has never used a weapon like this before. His stance is awkward and his form is all over the place. The old man remains patient. He carefully corrects every mistake and even adjusts Jui-won's posture by hand. With each correction, Jui-won learns something new. Little by little, his technique begins improving. And despite having no experience in archery, he starts picking it up surprisingly fast. Meanwhile, while Jui-won is busy training, Dorothy suddenly wakes from a nightmare. The dream brings back painful memories from her childhood. She's terrified that Liz and Jui-won might leave her someday, just like her previous mother and father did. The moment she wakes up, she rushes off to find Liz, but she can't find her anywhere. Her fear immediately returns. For a moment, she worries that they may have actually abandoned her. Panicking, she runs to check the meat bucket. The meat is still there. That helps calm her down a little, but she's still worried about Liz, so she continues searching. Then she hears loud voices coming from outside. Dorothy carefully peeks through the window. What she sees instantly frightens her. Liz is being harassed by 3 men from the village. Dorothy recognizes them. They're part of the same group that used to associate with her real father, the man who often took his anger out on both her and Liz. The sight makes her nervous. She's scared the men might hurt Liz. She wants to help, but she's far too frightened to move. Outside, Liz desperately tries to explain herself. She insists that she hasn't stolen anything and that all the meat was personally hunted by her husband. The 3 men refuse to believe her. Instead, they accuse her of being an evil witch who caused her previous husband's death. Now that she's married again, they claim she's trying to get her new husband killed as well while stealing food from other people. No matter how much Liz tries to defend herself, they won't listen. One of them shoves her aside before the group forces their way into the house. Inside, they discover the wolf hide. Their eyes immediately light up. A hide like that could be sold for a lot of money. Then they spot the bucket full of cured meat. The sight leaves them stunned. They begin wondering if that slave really managed to hunt an entire wolf by himself. Greed quickly takes over. The men prepare to take everything for themselves. But before they can leave, Liz steps in front of them. With all the courage she can gather, she declares that she won't allow anyone to steal her husband's hard-earned possessions. This only makes the 3 men even angrier. They start bad-mouthing Liz, pointing out how she always stayed silent when she didn't have a husband. But now that she has a new one, she suddenly has the courage to stand up to them. Without a second thought, one of the men punches her to the ground and tells the other 2 to grab everything valuable before leaving. Liz falls hard. As she tries to get back up, she notices Dorothy hiding underneath the bed. Immediately, she realizes the danger. If she stays down and gives up, the men might find Dorothy too, and if that happens, they could hurt her as well. While Liz struggles to decide what to do, the red-haired man asks the blonde man what would happen if the mountain keeper found out what they had done to his wife. The blonde man doesn't want problems with the mountain keeper either, so he comes up with a horrifying solution: kill her, then burn down the cabin. That way nobody would ever discover what really happened. The other two men immediately grin. They realize they've been worrying over nothing. After all, the mountain keeper can't even understand their language. Once they're done with Liz, he'll never learn the truth from her. Hidden beneath the bed, Dorothy can only watch in horror as the men drag her mother away. The moment they're gone, she rushes out and starts screaming Ji-Won's name at the top of her lungs, desperately hoping he'll hear her and come save Liz. Meanwhile, Ji-Won has just finished his training and is preparing to head home. That's when he hears someone crying loudly in the distance. His entire body freezes. Without hesitation, he drops everything and sprints toward the cabin. He's terrified that something may have happened to Liz or Dorothy. As he rushes back, he suddenly comes across the three men forcefully dragging Liz away. The sight instantly makes him lose his mind. Ji-Won charges at them like a wild beast. His first punch lands on the red-haired man. The guy drops instantly. Lights out. Next, he turns toward the fat man and drives a knee straight into his face. The impact explodes his nose. The blonde man reacts the fastest. He swings from the side, hopping to catch Ji-Won off guard. But Ji-Won easily dodges the attack and slams him into the ground. Then he drives another powerful punch into the man's face. Only then does he stop. For a brief moment, Ji-Won realizes he's acting like a crazed animal. Unfortunately, the blonde man doesn't appreciate the mercy. While Ji-Won is distracted, he grabs a nearby scythe and swings it toward his neck. Thankfully, Ji-Won reacts in time. He catches the man's arm before the blade can reach him. Enraged, he's ready to snap the man's arm in half. But before he can do it, the hooded old man suddenly stops him. The old man reminds him that his daughter is watching, and she's terrified. The words hit Ji-Won harder than any attack ever could. Oddly enough, he wasn't even this scared when he fought the giant wolf. Slowly, he turns toward Dorothy, then toward Liz. A few moments ago, his eyes were filled with fury. Now they look like they're about to fill with tears. Ji-Won expects Liz to be afraid of him too, and honestly, she can't pretend she wasn't scared. Watching him beat those men so brutally reminded her of her previous husband. The memory terrified her. For a moment, she couldn't stop herself from wondering what would happen if Ji-Won ever became like that. But then she looks into his eyes, and what she sees isn't rage, it isn't cruelty, it's concern, pure concern for her and Dorothy. In that moment, Liz understands something important. No matter what happens, Ji-Won will always protect his family. He wasn't fighting because he enjoyed violence. He was fighting because he was afraid of losing them. Realizing this, all of her fears disappear. So Liz gently takes Ji-Won's hand and places it against her cheek. She closes her eyes and feels the warmth in his touch, the warmth of his kindness, the warmth of the man who has always cared for her. And in return, she silently thanks him for protecting her from the cruelty of the world. Ji-Won pulls Liz into a hug and she immediately wraps her arms around him as well. For a moment, the couple simply enjoys being in each other's embrace. Then both of them suddenly look toward Dorothy. That's when they realize they completely forgot about their daughter. Immediately putting romance aside, they rush over to check on her. Dorothy is still shaken by everything that happened. Seeing all that violence brought back painful memories of her deadbeat father who used to beat both her and her mother. When she saw the three men attacking Liz, she became terrified that they might hurt her too. That's why she was too scared to come out and help. More than anything, Dorothy is afraid that Liz will hate her for hiding under the bed, so she apologizes for being a coward and not helping her mother. The moment Liz hears those words, her heart breaks. She quickly pulls Dorothy into her embrace and hugs her tightly. Liz reassures her that she did absolutely nothing wrong. In fact, she's proud of her. Dorothy was smart enough to hide when danger appeared, and that decision may have saved her. Hearing those words finally helps Dorothy relax. Even so, she still seems a little nervous around Ji-Won. Seeing this, Liz gently reminds her that she doesn't need to be afraid. After all, her dad will always protect her. Dorothy looks confused. She reminds Liz that her father died in the mountains, so how could he possibly protect her? Liz can't help laughing at the innocent question. She quickly explains that she isn't talking about Dorothy's deadbeat father. She's talking about Ji-Won. Since Liz is now Dorothy's stepmother, that means Ji-Won is her stepfather. Dorothy's eyes immediately light up. She can hardly believe it. Ji-Won is her dad now. To Dorothy, Ji-Won is the greatest man in the world. He's tall, he's strong, and most importantly, he's kind. She never imagined that after losing such a terrible father, she'd end up gaining someone like Ji-Won. Excited beyond words, Dorothy suddenly sprints out of the room and starts calling him daddy. Ju-Wan can't understand exactly what she's saying, but somehow he can tell it's something close to father, so he simply opens his arms and lets her crash straight into him. Dorothy hugs him tightly and refuses to let go. Ju-Wan couldn't be happier. He's basically living every girl dad's dream. As he's about to pick her up, however, he notices a strange smell. It doesn't take long for him to realize what happened. Dorothy probably wet herself from being so frightened earlier, but there's no way he's ruining this moment, so he picks her up anyway and lets her cling to him as much as she wants. A moment later, Liz joins them. For a brief time, the entire family simply enjoys being together. Peace finally returns, at least for a few seconds. Then Dorothy's eyes suddenly land on the stolen bucket of meat. Instantly, everything else becomes unimportant. She takes off running like a cheetah toward it. The little girl throws open the lid and carefully checks inside. The moment she confirms that all the meat is still there, her mood completely changes. She's happy again. From a distance, Ju-Wan and Liz can't help laughing at her behavior. At this point, they've realized that Dorothy loves meat more than almost anything else in the world. Watching her get so excited only motivates Ju-Wan even more. He wants to hunt enough animals so Dorothy can eat meat every single day without worrying about it. But before that can happen, there's still one problem left to deal with: the three robbers. Ju-Wan asks Liz to take Dorothy inside while he walks toward the unconscious men. However, before he can do anything, the old hunter stops him. The old man advises him not to kill them or injure them any further. His words immediately cool the rage burning inside Ju-Wan's heart. He realizes the old man is right. If he goes too far, he could end up arrested. Or worse, he could lose everything and become a slave again. Ju-Wan thanks the old hunter for the advice. The old man then suggests that instead of taking revenge, he should simply confiscate the thieves' tools and put them to good use himself. Ju-Wan agrees. He gathers up their tools and carries them back home. Before leaving, he looks at the three unconscious men one last time. Then he silently promises them that if they ever cross his path again, he'll make sure they suffer a fate worse than death. Later that night, after all the chaos finally settles down, Ju-Wan starts examining Liz's bruises. He decides to try healing them with his magic. Ever since his fight with the wolf, he hasn't been able to recreate that strange healing ability. Because of that, he isn't very confident it'll actually work. To his surprise, it does. Within seconds, the bruises on Liz's face completely disappear. The result leaves Ju-Wan stunned. Naturally, he decides this success deserves a proper celebration, so he grabs Liz and spends the rest of the night enjoying the company of his beautiful wife. The next morning, the village is as busy as ever. The harvest festival is getting closer and everyone is preparing for it. Meanwhile, the village chief's wife is busy scolding her husband. She's furious that he gave away all the fabric she had spent years collecting to Ju-Wan and Liz. The village chief tries to calm her down. He reminds her that the village desperately needs a mountain guardian and there is nobody more suitable for the job than Ju-Wan. But his wife isn't convinced. She spent 10 whole years saving that fabric. The chief continues trying to persuade her. He points out that Ju-Wan is both a capable fighter and a skilled hunter. Because of that, he encourages her to build a good relationship with Liz. After all, if Ju-Wan starts hunting rabbits regularly, Liz might sell rabbit pelts at a very cheap price. Hearing that, the village chief's wife finally relaxes a little and decides to trust him. Once she leaves, however, the chief's friendly smile slowly turns into a smirk. The truth is, he never told her his real reason for giving away the fabric. The real reason is far more selfish. He noticed the wolf bite on Ju-Wan's arm, a wound that severe should have crippled him. Yet Ju-Wan seemed perfectly healthy. Not only that, but the wound had healed completely. The village chief knows that only healing magic can recover injuries that quickly, which means Ju-Wan must be a healing mage. As far as the chief knows, there isn't another healing mage in the entire county, let alone in their tiny village. That realization awakens greed deep inside his heart. If he could sell Ju-Wan to a wealthy noble, he might finally escape this miserable village and spend the rest of his life living in luxury within a grand city. That's why he hasn't told anyone, not even his wife. At the moment, only he and the old hunter Gus know about Ju-Wan's healing abilities. Back on the mountain, Ju-Wan remains completely unaware of the schemes being plotted against him by both the village chief and Gus. He's far too busy admiring his rabbit-like wife. Ever since the village chief delivered all that fabric, Liz has been happier than ever. She's practically like a rabbit that just discovered an entire carrot farm. Ju-Wan has absolutely no idea what she plans to do with all that fabric, so he decides not to worry about it and lets her enjoy herself. Instead, he leaves the cabin and heads out to train with Gus. The old hunter had told him the previous day that they would be hunting rabbits today, and honestly, that makes Ju-Wan a little nervous. He can't bring himself to hurt cute rabbits because they remind him way too much of Liz and Dorothy. So now he's secretly hoping that the rabbits living in this forest are ugly enough that he won't feel guilty shooting them.